Now is the time to play Star Trek Online. The free-to-play MMORPG, based on the Star Trek universe, is currently running a quick start event. Yes, this is aimed at both new and returning players. It's available from April 21st until May 21st, so make it so. Players who choose this quick start event will be placed into Victory's life. Your playthrough as one of the Jem'Hadar who make discoveries about their own species and the Dominion. This storyline is mid-game for Star Trek Online, but it opens up all the past, present, and future storylines of the game. This event allows you to play the full game with a fully upgraded character. For details on the update, head over to TrekCentral.net. Today, we're speaking of Star Trek Online's executive producer, Thomas Marrone, and community manager, Mike Fatum, about the game roadmap and more. But that's not all. Trek Central has teamed up with Art Games and Cryptic Studios to offer some of you a chance to win in-game Star Trek Online packs. Simply head over to the link in our description to enter the giveaway, and who knows, maybe we'll see you in-game very soon. Thomas, Mike, thank you for joining us here on Trek Central to talk all things Star Trek Online. It is a pleasure to have you back with us. How are you both doing?
I'm doing great. It's really great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I am also doing great. We just had our big enterprise bundle launch. We had a great trailer for that. There was like a documentary inspired by like Ken Burns, or if you go to a museum and you see an exhibit, sometimes they have a little theater where you can like learn more about things. And that launched this week. I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of the ships that were out in that bundle. And I know this will be coming out a little bit after that, but I will still be proud of it in a couple weeks. So it's just exciting.
We'll ask you more and more questions about starships because, of course, we can't do a Thomas Marrone Star Trek Online interview without talking about starships. But before we get to that, I gotta say,
cool.
the renders of those ships, a big shout out to, I think, is it Keeney and a few of the other team members who've done those beautiful renders of that for the documentary there. Seeing the Enterprise era, brought to life like that, it's always really nice to see that, especially as one of the undeserved, one of the Star Trek shows that got cut short. It is beautiful seeing a glimpse of what we could have got with the NX refit. So hopefully people can experience those ships, in new ways in Star Trek Online now.
Yeah, I think that's was important to me with the documentary specifically was, like you said, that we didn't get to spend as much time in that era as I think everybody would have liked. And also that era is one of the most interesting eras of Star Trek in the sense of if you love 1776, if you love Hamilton, if you love those stories about nations being born, right? That's what the Enterprise era is. It is about, it's preceding the prequel to the founding of the Federation. And so I thought it'd be really fun to like lean into that. Obviously we do it from the perspective of the ships that were involved, but we're highlighting ships that were kind of like background actors. They were the show wasn't about them, but they played an important role in that era of history. And so by telling that story, I think hopefully made people more interested in those ships and made them more exciting for folks, than maybe they would have been otherwise, just based on their, the parts that they did play in the show itself.
Yeah, one of the coolest things about the documentary that I sort of saw from the outside, because it was produced, before I got back, was just that the amount of detail that the team was able to add to, like Thomas said, these background ships. I absolutely love the stalking Makra's story that got added to the Kumari, and the extra livery that we added for that and stuff. It makes so much sense with the storylines we know, and it also just adds so much to the universe, and it feels so realistic. I don't know, I really liked it.
Yeah, because I stole that from real history. That's based on the Flying Tigers from World War II. It's a squadron of Army Air Force pilots who went to China to help defend China from the Japanese Empire before America. I believe it was before we actually entered the war. Japan was invading all over Asia, and there were certain groups of volunteers that went to England and China, and the Flying Tigers were a squadron of P-40s. And their pilots that went to China and became Chinese Air Force pilots. And so that was I thought that was a really cool way to bring in to tell a little bit of a story about the Kamari and Shran, because in the beta canon that we have, and most of it, I looked really closely at the Federation 150 Years book by David Goodman, which is a fantastic book. It's a in-universe history book, basically about basically from the Enterprise era up through Khitomer, and talks about the history of the Federation. But the way it describes the war, which I think is you know in concert with the TOS calling it the Earth Romulan War, right? So it's described as a conflict purely between Earth and Romulus. So, but you want Shran to still be a part of it. You want him to be a hero. You want him to help out. And so, like finding a way to bring that real historical inspiration into it, exactly like Mike said, it adds a texture to it that I think people really like.
I think really like expanding or like taking bits of that beta canon there and turning it, with Star Trek Online's own storyline is really good, because it especially gives some of us who love the concept of Romulan War like that little bit more of juicy information to sort of go off, which is fantastic.
Thomas will make his Romulan War documentary someday.
Yes,
watch this space. It'll happen. It'll be 3.5 hours long, and it'll be fascinating.
I mean, I still want to do the Dominion War, like a full like 6-part, 2 hours each. Ken Bird style Dominion War documentary. But anyway, we can move on from that. But I just
the first episode the first episode is just 2 hours of a title card that says "Watch Deep Space Nine." What's wrong with
you?
Mike, I've got to say to yourself, you've returned as Star Trek Online's community manager. Welcome back. But what brought you back to Star Trek Online? Tell us a bit of a story.
Yeah, well, during the the period where I was without job, I was doing some streams on my personal account every day, and one thing that I made sure to do was to keep streaming Star Trek Online, keep up with that community. That community sort of stayed and supported me very strongly through that period of my life, and so through that I built some relationships and continued some relationships with folks who are still at Star Trek Online and folks who are at ARC, who are, my current employers. And I think the opportunity, when it seemed like the community manager position would be opening up, I got a very nice email that said, "Hey, would you interview for this position? Would you be interested in coming back?" And I, of course, said, "Absolutely, yes. Where do I sign up?" And went through the process and talked to a bunch of very, very nice people, and found myself back where I started, which is a wonderful, wonderful feeling. I love this community. I love this game, and I'm very excited to be back in this new era. We've got the dream team. Thomas and Jeremy are in charge. Jack's back and is super energized about getting the game forward into the future. So, I think there's a lot of really exciting stuff coming up that people are going to absolutely lose their minds over.
That's fantastic. And obviously we'll talk more about, the upcoming sort of, events for Star Trek Online. We've got to talk about the quick start, the roadmap, and some partnerships. But have you got any sort of personal objectives for Star Trek Online that you kind of want to achieve now that you're back in the scene?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I want to do, sorry, I thought you were talking to Thomas and then I realized the question was at me. I'm a lonely community manager. What do you mean? I don't have objectives. No, I think, I want to continue doing a lot of the good work that I did when I was last here, but I also really want to continue building on a lot of the incredible work my predecessor, Counselor Suna, did. And by the time this airs, you'll have seen some of that come to fruition already. We'll be doing content creator stream for the new bundle, and that's going to continue being a regular thing as we release new ships and new content. I want to bring in, members of the community to provide tips and tricks to the players. I also want to get something put together to sort of help flow, as we're bringing new and old players into the game, to sort of help flow them back into the saddle or into the saddle for the first time. Just really digestible ways to figure out what it is you're what it is you do when you play Star Trek Online, beyond just hitting spacebar as hard and as fast as you can.
I got back into the other day. I was testing out some stuff to capture some footage. I'm like, I'm pressing space quite a lot here. I was like, I've missed this actually.
It feels great, right?
Right click on your weapons and you can auto fire. Then you only have to
I
press
always
space
forget.
bar
I
once.
always forget. I feel like I'm one of those old players. I'm like, well, I did this 10 years ago. I will continue doing this. Like,
I have all of my weapons set to auto fire, and I still hit spacebar.
I think
over
I do
and over
this.
as fast as
Yeah,
I can. It just feels right.
I'm doing my part. Like,
yeah.
both of you, let's talk about the quick start event. This is obviously a major thing, and it is a limited time mode, but it is a major thing for Star Trek Online. Of course, also Neverwinter and Champions Online. Who wants to talk about this? Thomas, Mike, who wants to take the lead on that one?
I'll go first, and then Mike, I'm sure, can jump in if there's anything else he wants to add to it. I mean, ultimately, this event is about making it really easy for people like you who, maybe haven't played in a while, in 10 years or so, to give you an option to jump in right away with a character that's fully geared, it's already got a really good ship, that's got a really good crew, everything's already equipped. You don't have to go and figure out like what weapons or consoles to use or traits or anything. All of that's already on the character. And so when the event is running, you just log into Stow, and then you'll see a big like play now button at the top of the character selection screen with a nice handsome Jemadar character. So you click on that button, and it'll make a new Jemadar for you. This is a Vanguard Jemadar, which is actually a premium version of the species that we're giving away for free. It has some more powerful traits, and that'll be available while the event is running. It comes with its own character slot, so if you create a Jemadar Vanguard through this quick start event, you're not taking up one of your existing character slots. It comes with that, and then for existing players who have been here the whole time or have started playing recently, and maybe they don't need a new Jemadar, they can still create this character and keep the character slot if they get rid of it. So we wanted to make sure that there was something for our existing players to during this event. But honestly, we're just excited to give people who maybe want to check out Stow, but obviously coming back to an MMO that's 16 years old can be a little daunting because it's a big game, right? And there's a lot to it. There are a lot of things that you can kind of get lost in the weeds about re-equipping or what's a good build, all that. You don't have to worry about that with the Jemadar Vanguard that you get when you create it during our quick start. And so yeah, I hope people will use that as a excuse to come back and check out the game. And then while we're doing this, we're doing a couple other cool things. To kind of supplement that, we'll have our Gamma recruitment thing running. So the Jemadar character you create will have a couple extra really cool rewards that they can claim as they play through the game, and then all of our a lot of our Jemadar themed items and stuff will also be on sale. So there's a lot of if I can use a business word, synergy around this event to really dive in. But ultimately, we just want to make it really easy to come back to the game, and it's got a nice streamlined tutorial, so you can pick up the basics, but then you really get right back into the action, and you don't have to worry about learning all the complex systems. It's all set up for you.
I was just going to say, I think it's a really exciting time to both come back and to play the game. I mean, the way they've set this up, we created these Jem'Hadars. Jem'Hadars is not the plural version of that word. We created these Jem'Hadar something, like a long time ago, as the idea of, both veteran players who want to just start a new character and get right into it without having to level them up, and also for newer players who just want to jump right into the end game content and play through the whole game with the most powerful player. So to be able to get that like right away for free, the more powerful version of the Jem'Hadar, I think it's really, really cool. And I think it's also really exciting, that character slot that Thomas mentioned, because we have a ton of players who, over the years have been asking for another character slot so that instead of 592 characters, they could have 593. It's I think they're going to be really excited about that possibility too. So it's really cool.
So when say I we're the update launch, say I've logged in, I've clicked play now, I'm now a Jem'Hadar Vanguard in Star Trek Online. How does it work? Am I placed immediately at the start of the story? Is it perhaps a new tutorial or something? Where do I find myself in the storyline of Star Trek Online?
So you find yourself in our expansion Victory is Life, and so you'll be jumped into that storyline as part of one of the Jem'Hadar who, without too many spoilers, start to discover some things about their own species and how they can maybe not have to be slaves to the Dominion anymore. And so it's sort of the storyline itself is sort of mid-game, but the nice thing about it is it'll still open up all of the previous storylines to you, depending on whether your Jem'Hadar aligns with the Federation or the Klingon Empire. You still get you still can start at the beginning and experience the entire story of Star Trek Online. I think it's framed for the Jem'Hadar as like historical simulations or something like that. But so you start in the middle of maybe our most popular expansion, and then you can still play the whole game, but now with a fully upgraded, fully kitted out character.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really a great. If you love DS9, it's a great place to start the game because you've got, right away you've got Jeffrey Combs and Renee
Aubergenois.
Aubergenois. Yeah, sorry. I was really confident in my head, and then like and then not a visitor, and obviously Aaron Eisenberg, rest in peace, and like all these amazing DS9 luminaries voice their characters in that story arc, and so you're gonna jump in and get like blasted in the face with so much cool DS9 celebrity.
Chase Masterson once referred to Victory is Life as like DS9 2, which
I was
we
just
thought
thinking
was really cool at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. No, it sounds really exciting. Hopefully people, really jump in there and experiencing that. But building onto that, of course, that is getting people back into Star Trek Online. Looking to the future, this is the 16th anniversary of the MMO, but also the 60th anniversary of the Star Trek franchise, which is scary to say and makes a few of us feel quite old. But anyway, you've got a roadmap coming soon. Tell us about the roadmap.
Yeah, we've got a lot of things on the roadmap, and I hope that people are excited about what we've listed there. Obviously, as you go further in the year, we're a little more vague. We don't want to overpromise, but one of the things that we have already kind of talked about, and you'll see it in the roadmap, is that for the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, this year we're going to go through the whole franchise and do ships from like every era, of not necessarily like every show, but every era. So like Discovery, Strange New Worlds era, TOS animated series era, TNG era. All of that, right, is kind of represented here, and then we started with Enterprise. We started with the Enterprise bundle. That was kind of the kickoff of that whole initiative. But you'll see that we've got the Grawl-class starship from Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. That's the USS Archer from the premiere. That's coming out actually on April 7th with our first Contact Day event. We've got a really special ship driven event for the first Contact Day, so I do want to actually talk about that by itself. That's kind of listed at the very beginning of the roadmap, but let's
we'll come back to that
table that for a second. Yeah. Awesome. And then we've got the Orion Orchid class starship. This is that really big orange Orion ship that's in the animated series and Lower Decks. I've been looking at this. We're working on it now. It looks incredible. Like we've totally adapted it, to the more realistic Star Trek Online style, and I'm just really excited for players to see it. I think
it as we speak, as I can't remember.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's wild, right?
Yeah,
It looks really.
Yeah.
It looks.
We'll put an image on screen for people if we've not got one by then. But that's really interesting.
Yeah, so the animated series version is really interesting, and then it showed up in Lower Decks, which is super cool. And then I think that people, when they see what we've done with it, they'll really think it's awesome because it's just, it looks so menacing, and it's weird and funky and menacing, and I don't know. I'm really happy with how it's turning out. So beyond that, we've got so the Damocles class starship from Strange New Worlds, which actually received its real name thanks to Fan Home, but it's the false flag Crossfield from the Broken Circle episode of Strange New Worlds. Thanks, Mike, for looking that up yesterday. But this one's really interesting because it's got the saucer of the Crossfield. The Crossfield is, of course, the USS Discovery, right? So this has the same saucer as the Discovery, but then it's got a very different aft section. And it has actually Strange New Worlds Constitution, so Enterprise style nacelles. And our ship artists have actually been able to incorporate all of this into our existing Crossfield variant family. So if you get the Damocles, you'll be able to mix all these parts with any of your existing Crossfield ships, which is really cool, and a lot more customization options than you normally get for a lockbox ship. So I think that people really dig that. And then one of the things I'm most excited about is our summer event ship, which is Gomtu, from the TNG episode Tin Man. We're actually going to let people fly him. And I'll go ahead and say it now. We're actually looking at, he'll have its own bridge. Ooh. So this is the first time in a long time that we've given a custom bridge for starships. And I have to credit Jeremy Randall, our lead designer, because he insisted on that, and we were able to do it. So it's, you know, I remember that episode. It's a very distinct, like organic style environment, right? And so people will be able to climb into that environment when they get Gomtu, which I think is really cool.
Viewers at home, you just got to watch me learn that information in real time, which is why you heard the exclamation from me.
Awesome. Yeah. And then I think once we get past the summer event, we're a little more vague about what's coming up, but I think you can all, you know, that there's a lot of cool things spanning the history of Star Trek, and you know, I think people will, I hope that people really enjoy that. You know, we do have our sort of our big content updates, the release windows penciled in there. We're not going to get into any detail about those yet, but I will say that, you know, I think people will be surprised about what we're doing, but it's also going to honor both 60 years of Star Trek and 16 years of Star Trek Online in a way that I think is that people will get really excited about.
And Mike, your thoughts on the roadmap?
Yeah, I mean, the roadmaps were something that we did on and off during my last tenure. It was something that I always loved when we were able to do, because it gave fans, you know, sort of that warm hug of, we've got a lot of stuff coming, and you know what you can expect and what cool things we're teasing for you. And so I'm glad we're back to doing it. I'm really glad. I think it's I looked at this the first time and I went, wow, we're telling them a lot of information up front. We're telling them like the next like 3 or 4 ships that are coming. I think it's really cool. I also think, you know, what Thomas was talking about with the upcoming seasons surprising people. I recently found out what he meant, and it made me very, very happy. So stay tuned for that.
We love a good tease when we do these interviews.
Yeah.
I think
I can't say any more, or the phaser snipers will find me.
Right.
I think the roadmap's really good. It gives people a lot to look forward to, and I think especially with everything that goes on, you know, around us in the world at the minute, having something like this, you know what's coming down the line is really nice to players and like fans of Star Trek as a whole. Let's get back to the first Contact Day ship, Thomas, wasn't it? We plugged it, so of course we've got to talk about starships, you know, more in depth.
Yeah, so this is something that this was actually one of the first when I became executive producer for Star Trek Online. For context, that is, I joke that it's, you know, being an idea guy. I mean, essentially, I am responsible for the game, right? Like I am the leader of the game, you know, the captain of the ship, whatever metaphor you want to use. I report to Jack as CEO of Cryptic, but it's a big change in my responsibility from going from art director to EP, because as art director I was mainly focused on the art side of things, but as EP, you know, I'm worried about everything. But that also means sometimes you do get to make a unilateral decision, and I you know, I don't intend to abuse this power, but
yes, he does.
You know, for certain things when it's important. But the First Contact Day event this year we're calling it the 60th anniversary First Contact Day event because it's special. So normally our First Contact Day is a 3-week event. It has a cool like item set reward or whatever. But this year we're kind of going all out for the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, and we're giving people something that they've asked for a long time, which is a sovereign class starship that is a battle cruiser. So I think this is something that may be a little bit of inside baseball for people who are really familiar with the roles that starships have in Star Trek Online. Battle cruisers are kind of a halfway point between cruisers and escorts. So they're powerful ships with a lot of combat capability, but they also are a bit more tanky than a standard escort. And that, I mean, I think that describes the Sovereign pretty much to a T, right? And so people have been asking for a battlecruiser Sovereign. When I say battlecruiser Sovereign, what I mean is a ship that has a Sovereign style skin, but is classified as a battlecruiser. And then to get a little more in the weeds on the details there, it's also going to have a 5-3 weapons layout, which means it'll have 5 forward weapons and 3 aft weapons, which is again another thing that people have been asking for a long time, that our Starship enthusiasts have been asking for. And so thinking about what we were going to do for the First Contact Day event, that we wanted it to be special for the 16th anniversary, that seemed like a really natural fit, because First Contact Day, of course, celebrates the movie First Contact, and that the Enterprise, the Sovereign USS Enterprise E, premiered in that movie. And so that all came together for me, and it seemed like something to finally give people something that they wanted for a very long time, but also really lean into the theme of the event and the celebration of 60 years of Star Trek. And I'm really excited that we're doing it as an event reward, that people will get this really desirable, awesome, powerful starship, and they can get it for free just by playing the game. I think that's something I'm really proud of for Star Trek Online in general, is that a lot of the stuff that you want, you can just get it for free by playing the game, right? Like you of course, we're happy to have people buy things from the C store and all that stuff, that keeps the lights on, but we also want people to, you can just experience all the missions by playing for free. There are a lot of ships like this new Sovereign Battlecruiser you can get by playing events. Like GOM2 will be another event reward starship. So so people, if they don't want to pay, they can still get all this stuff by just enjoying the content in the game, and I'm really proud of that.
That sounds great. No, I think that's going to be really exciting. It's like, and also, who doesn't like Battle Cruise as well? And it's Sovereign. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Great timing for 30th anniversary of First Contact. The film later this year as well, which is
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot going on
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, right. The 25th anniversary Enterprise.
I
That was
know.
a good, for our bundle and our trailer. One of the things the other thing I wanted to say about the battlecruiser Sovereign is I'm actually really excited about how the ship turned out visually, because it does come with its own skin, and this new skin is actually inspired by. It's a refinement of what we called our signature ship back in the day, which was the version of the Sovereign that appeared on the Game Informer cover, for the announcement that Cryptic Studios was taking over Star Trek Online. It was kind of one of the very first PR pieces that Cryptic did about Stowe, and there's this iconic cover of a futuristic Sovereign that looks a little different, right, than the canon one. And so we thought it'd be fun for this one to again celebrate the game's history, the franchise history, to make a riff on that is, it's sleeked out, it's more modern and refined than that original art, but still harkens back to that, and I think everybody will check that out. So, or will be excited to see it. In fact, I'm actually gonna put this in the chat for you,
Ooh,
so you can check it out.
all I can think of as while we're talking about this is the lower decks thing, where it's Captain Freeman going, "I don't want the ship coming out all sovereign like."
Right.
No. We want every ship coming out all sovereign like. This was actually, as we're recording this, this idea of recreating the sovereign art, or the sovereign Game Informer art, was something that Thomas came up with yesterday. And told Keen Pundus, our ship artist, hey, could you put together a render of this? And I think he had this version ready for us in like an hour.
Yeah.
He's just that excited about it. Just bam, here you go.
You wanted it, you got it.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, that is fantastic. Like, oh yeah, like same with recreation, and like it is a modern successor essentially. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and so the other neat thing that we do, this is this we're calling it Noble class, and that's actually a the ship that you see on that Game Informer cover is it is the skin that exists in the game without the roll bar, and so we're updating that with this new design. So this will be a remaster of the Noble class. That'll be free for everybody who has a Sovereign, and then if you want the version, the Battlecruiser version with the roll bar, then you play the event to get the ship. So again, I love it when we can add something new to the game, but also make the whole game a little bit better for everybody.
Yeah. Thomas has a hit list of old ship designs that he wants to update, and
Yeah.
it's getting shorter every day,
which is good. I remember, I'm going to age myself here slightly. I remember like back in 2014, 2015, it was like the summer holidays, off of school, and I sat through and played Star Trek Online. I remember how happy I was when I got the Sovereign class, because it's the Enterprise E, of course. And like, I can't
Right.
wait to go back and look at the ship now in game. Like, that's going to be amazing. I finally
Oh, and
have
it
the
looks a lot
Enterprise
better
F
than
now
when
as
you.
well. Yeah, probably back then, at least. Oh no!
Hey, back then we looked at it and said, "This is the prettiest ship that will ever be made. There will never be prettier ships than this." And then
here we are, scarily over a decade later. Like,
yeah, I can't believe 2014 is considered aging ourselves now. Oh God,
Right.
Whoops. Well, to both of you as well. Fantastic updates for Star Trek Online there. But also there's an upcoming partnership with I think I'm going to try and pronounce this, Beetle and Grim, who are doing some tabletop game expansions, and I believe Star Trek Online has a bit of a deal going on here. Would you be able to tell us a bit about that?
yeah,
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna pass that over to Mike in a second, but I do wanna I do wanna start with how we got involved with them.
Yeah.
So they actually reached out to me on my art station because I think they found out that found they were looking for Star Trek artists, and they reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, do you know anybody who could make a map of the DS9 Promenade for us?" And I was like, "Well, I could do it." And this was last year sometime, and so they like, oh, okay, great, and they hired me, and so um I started working in the map, and then of course I knew that they were officially licensed, but I didn't know much about them. But then I kind of revealed that, like, oh, by the way, I'm at the time art director for Star Trek Online. Do you guys want to like collaborate with us? I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And so it kind of built into this whole thing. But anyway, now I'll pass it off to Mike to talk about
yeah.
who they are and what the games are.
Sure. So Beetle and Grim, they're a company that started basically to create high-end Dungeons and Dragons accessories, like maps and miniatures and things like that. And they've expanded a lot since then. And they've started doing this thing recently with Star Trek, where they create they're almost like how to host a murders or like escape rooms, but on a tabletop. And so they're launching a Kickstarter to create two new games. The first one is a lower decks game where you are you're placed in a lower decks hilarious situation and have to solve a bunch of puzzles to escape. And the other one is a DS9 game where Quark is accused of murder in one of the holosuites, and you have to work together with your teammates to clear his name, unless you're Odo, in which case you say, "Yeah, he probably did it," and walk off.
It's closed.
Yeah, it's closed. They're both really cool because they come with all of this. Like, it's not just like a board and some pieces. In fact, I don't think either of them have a board and pieces. They come with all these like high quality handouts, and they work with apps on your phone, and so it becomes this really immersive Star Trek experience with your friends and with your crew. And so what we're doing to sort of team up with them is as part of their Kickstarter, if you back in the first couple of days, everybody who backs gets a Deep Space Nine pack that they can redeem in Star Trek Online. And then there's two higher levels of backing, both of which give you both games. And those will also give you the Hesperian cruiser from Lower Decks, which is the big dragon ship from the Red Fair planet that I love to death. It shoots fire out of its mouth. It's great.
That sounds great. Yeah, what a great collaboration as well. I love it when Star Trek Online does these collaborations. I think at the end of the day, players are the ones who are better for it as well, as they get so many cool things.
Yeah. It's great. We really, really love Yeah, that sounds very corporate to say, but we love working with all of our Star Trek licensee friends.
But we
It's
do
just
though, because
we do.
they're fans like us.
Yeah,
They love it as much as we do.
that's what I was
It's
gonna
just
say. Like
fun.
everybody who
Yeah.
works on Star Trek, the way you become a Star Trek licensee is you have an idea and then you go to Paramount and say, "Can we make this Star Trek thing?" So by definition, anybody who's a Star Trek licensee is there because they love Star Trek,
Yeah.
and we hang out with all these guys regularly anyway. And so it just becomes really easy and fun to like make these partnerships and support each other. And as Thomas said once, the rising tide lifts all boats, or I guess a rising nebula lifts all starship. Nope, 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 nope.
Just imagine Starships out of clouds now, like.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's been really great working with them, and we're really excited for people to back this Kickstarter and to get their hands on this cool SEO stuff too.
Fantastic. I've got a bit of a personal question for both of you here. It's only because, Mike, you've been back, I remember this. Do you think, and it's more of a marketing PR one, so may not be able to answer this question, but do you think we'll ever see Star Trek Online come to an event again, sort of like something in person of where players can come up and meet the developers and check out the game? Could you envision that in the future? I know you can't really comment on it, but...
I would love to. It's obviously I loved all the times that we went to different Star Trek conventions over the years. It's tough because right now there isn't an official Star Trek convention in the U.S. There's some in Europe, but there aren't really any over here. And so we would love to go. And our hands are a little tied, but we'll keep trying.
That's fair enough. I still
Yeah,
remember
I think
having the Odyssey pin, I think they gave out. It might have been you
yeah.
giving it
Oh
out at
yeah.
one event, so I've got that around here somewhere.
Heck yeah. Love that.
Yeah. I think ultimately, if we we see how the year goes, and if the game's doing well, it's certainly success builds success, right? And so
Yeah.
um, uh, if we are able to continue to grow the game and make things that people want to play, we can it's easier for us to make a case to show up at those events and kind of spread the good word, because I miss them too.
Yeah.
And it is honestly, and I would love for some of our new teammates to be able to go and show and like
Yes.
experience that, because it is such a this is a weird way to put it, but it's such a nourishing experience from a
Yeah.
creative standpoint to like have something that you work so hard on, and it never stops. It's a live game, right? Like there's no like, oh, we launched it, we're done. We're never done. we
Let's have a
just we just
party.
launched yeah, yeah, we just launched this big enterprise bundle. We just launched season 35, and we're always already starting on season 36, and even looking at the season 37 and what our next things are, right? Like it's a treadmill, right? It's a marathon, and having these little moments where you can have a party with people, and you can have people come up to you and say, hey, I love this, this means a lot to me. Yeah, it's super important for Mikey and I have had lots of experiences like that. We're blessed to have had lots of experiences like that, but I want more of the team, especially some of our newer junior people, to also have those experiences. So I really hope so.
Absolutely.
I really hope so.
Yeah, I've always described conventions as as cheesy as it sounds, the big warm hug of geekdom, because it's
Yeah.
this sort of really special place that you can't, and this special feeling that you really can't get anywhere else. And so many of our team members have basically families that they've put together at different Star Trek conventions over the years. So
Mhm.
obviously, we'd love to be a part of all that, and we'd love to come back.
Fantastic. Well, let's hope let's hope the game does well. Of course it will. And, we see you guys at an event perhaps in the near future.
Yeah, it would be awesome.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, Thomas, Mike, I think we've covered everything today about the upcoming updates with Star Trek Online. Hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. That would be rather embarrassing. But yeah, we've talked about the roadmap. We've talked about the Quick Start event, which sounds really exciting. And of course, the exciting partnerships with Star Trek Online. Before we end out, is there anything either of you would like to add on to tell the fans of Star Trek and STO?
I just want to say, since I've come back, it's been extremely exciting seeing what the team's been doing in my absence and what their plans are for the future. And I'm just excited for all of y'all to learn even more about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible privilege to work on this game, and it's an incredible privilege to have been a part of the game for almost its entire span. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna do my best to keep that going, to keep that legacy alive, to keep that torch alive, as we go forward with I think Star Trek Online, one of the great things about it is it kind of carries the torch, right, for Star Trek, no matter what else is going on in the world. And I think that I hope we can continue that. I plan on continuing that. And I take that very seriously.
Absolutely.
I saw this in a week, with the unfortunate news about Academy being cancelled at, 2 seasons. It's like, we've got no like Trek in production in a minute, which is, a first for, I think, 9 to 10 years now. We've not had any new Trek like in development or in production as far as we know. So like Star Trek Online is still here. It is carrying like torch, like you said, and like it is giving something for Star Trek fans to come and celebrate all eras of the fandom, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Star Trek theme park, and you can go to, Deep Space Nine land, Voyager land, any of the places you want to go and check out, and celebrate the fandom we all love.
What a perfect point to end on. Thomas, Mike, thank you very much for joining me today. We can't wait to see players jumping into S tier with the latest update, and hopefully we'll have you both back here sometime later this year to talk more Star Trek, and of course Starships.
Yeah, absolutely. Live long and prosper. Thank you.
Yeah, Kapla.